Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Meta Show Sunday edition. I am Brisc Rubal. I am here because, frankly, we're having a hard time making sure that Horde and these guys have a good idea of how to run a talk show. So I have decided that I'm going to come here and lend my talent to making Between Two Keepstars the best Sunday version of the Meta Show possible. I am joined alongside my dear friend and fellow CSM candidate, Rycker 514. Rycker, how are you today?
I'm doing good. It's a pretty nice day. It's the year anniversary of Between Two Keepstars. And, I figured since I've been trying for the past year to really make a meta show version make a meta show version for Pappy. And I'm just not as good as herfing and blurfing. So I thought, you know what? I should get someone who knows exactly how to do it. And Brisc, so thank you that you could come on, and I would say show me and the rest of the cast how to do it, but it's just me here, so I can take the knowledge that you impart on me today and bring it to the rest of the co-hosts.
I'm talking about it. I'm sad that Dex is not here. Although if Dex were here, I still couldn't understand him. So it's okay. It's fine. It'll be okay. So we have a lot of news this week. There's been a ton of things happening. For those of you who are just joining us, you might have been listening to the Horde Town Hall. Gobbin spent an hour and 15 minutes. I'm not sure what he said, but he said something. I have to go listen to it later and see what kind of good material he gave me for the Meta Show on Saturday, but I know that he had a conversation. We had a good Meta Show yesterday. We did our victory lap of the CSM. We had our 3 Imperium CSM candidates and Sutonia, who was also on the Imperium ballot, on the show. And we had a good time. And we also spent a lot of time herfing blurfs and generally just trying to forget the fact that Matani and Merkelchen and I had spent 4 hours the night before getting drunk together on stream, hanging out too. So we had a good weekend. This has been a very good weekend for Imperium streaming, let me tell you.
That's good to hear. And personally, I think it's going to get a lot better for Pappy after this stream because I'll know how to herf and blurf.
That's it. Teach you.
Speaking of CSM, I don't want to say that no block. I think no won this year. I think that's the one thing we can really take away. I believe we got 7 null candidates onto the CSM.
Let's just say it's not just this year. Null tends to win. Since we decided I believe it was around CSM 5 or CSM 6, when in the past, a little bit of CSM history for you here, my dear friend. So when the CSM first started, nullsec, for the most part, paid no attention to it. It was the haven of players like Jade Constantine and others, and it was treated like, oh, well, that's fun. Let the high-sec guys and the role players go have their fun playing democracy. And the big nullsec groups had people on there, but they didn't really pay too much attention to it. It wasn't until, I'm pulling up my little handy-dandy CSM chart here. It wasn't until, I want to say, CSM 5, when people realized, or at least on CSM 5, that there were issues with the game and things that the CSM did that had a real impact on nullsec. One of those things was there was a push to remove jump bridges from the game. And this triggered a large number of players in nullsec, including my co-host on the Meta Show, the Matani, and got him to say, all right, well, if this is the case, if the CSM is going to have this kind of influence, then we need to be there. And from CSM 6 on, there was hardly a single CSM that did not have a significant number of nullsec players on it. And this has been one of the big criticisms of the CSM over the last few years. In particular, every time that there is an election, there are a large number of people who decide that, oh, this is horrible. There's too many folks in nullsec that get on the CSM. We have to change the rules so that it's harder for them to get on there. And if we just change the rules this way and we limit the number of people from one group, or we limit the number of people from one play style or one area of space, then everything will be great and the CSM will be wonderful and representative and the outcomes will be so much better. And those of us who have served are sitting around looking at each other like, No, that's not how it works.
And
what was your this time running? Because was this your first time running?
Yeah, this was definitely my first time running.
Tell me what you thought about it. Tell me how it went for you, because I know you host your show every Sunday night. What else did you end up doing? How did it feel? What kind of campaigning did you do?
So I tried to go on a lot of talk shows. Well, as much as I could. I also did a town hall with Respect, Honor, Passion. And let me tell you that the first thing I said was, if you care about PvP, if you care about, roaming and all that stuff, don't elect me. I don't know shit about that. I should not have said that. So that was definitely an interesting experience. I also didn't really know how I wanted to frame my campaign. I was like, well, I don't want to suggest any changes because, I don't want to say, yeah, I'm going to change this, even though I know damn well that, I can try to tell CCP that this should be changed, but CCP does what CCP wants, and all I could do is just sort of, push for something. But again, I wasn't going to, say, hey, this is the changes I want to make, even though I know that's probably not going to happen. Basically, I didn't want to make empty promises. But what I found was that not trying to list any changes or things that I would change if had the opportunity really kind of hurt me. That and not knowing some of the finer points. Take, for instance, when we had to send in our CSM application to be a candidate. I didn't really understand that, okay, if you give them a video, they're not going to say, hey, here's a link to the video. They're just going to
What did they end up doing? Just putting the video there? Uh-oh. Did I lose Rycker? I hope not. Well, for those who heard what Rycker said, the part of the problem when you are running for CSM, there's no set book on how to do it. And everybody approaches it a different way. And I get asked almost constantly, Brisc, I want to run for CSM. I'm kind of interested in running for CSM. What should I do? How do I do that? So 2 years ago, when I was running for CSM 15, before I got elected, I decided to sit down and I wrote out a long post that we put up on Imperium News that was entitled, So You Want to Run for CSM? And I put that as a bookmark in my Eve CSM folder so that anytime anybody asks me, hey, Brisc, I want to run for CSM, can you give me some advice? I say, read this. And there are a number of things that are on that list. And I know that I linked it to Rycker. And I hope that he read it. And I hope he'll read it again, because there are a handful of things you absolutely have to do if you want to run for CSM. The first thing you have to do is you have to be able to answer the question, why am I running? This is what we call in the politics business the elevator speech. You have to be able to give it. And if you can't give it in an easy way, a concise way, and just repeat it and it flows off your tongue, you're going to get in trouble. And that's one of the things that I think Rycker had problems with. Don't ever say, if you care about this, you care about Roman, you care about that, don't vote for me. Never say don't vote for me. unless you are the head of Pandemic Horde or Karma Fleet and you don't care what anybody thinks, don't ever say don't vote for me. You always want them to vote for you. But the important thing is you need to be able to concisely say, here's why I'm running, here's why I would be a good CSM member. And let me just tell you this. Whenever Rycker gets back, I will, hopefully he's listening, but if not, the bottom line is, I'd say a good 85% of EVE players would make fine CSM members. You do not need to be an expert. You do not need to have the entire skill tree memorized. You don't need to be able to see and tell what ship is which, staring at things. Rycker is back finally. You don't need to be able to do any of that. What you need to do is you need to be able to show up to a meeting on time. You need to pay attention. You need to listen. You need to read the stuff that they send you, to think about it, and provide feedback. And 90% of the stuff they're going to ask you for feedback on, is stuff that you don't need to be an expert to give feedback about. Like when they said, hey, here's a new video. We're going to put this out as this trailer for Quadrant 4. What do you think? You don't need to be an expert for that. When they say, hey, we're going to be making these changes to the new player experience. What do you think about this? Everybody was a new player once. You can give them good feedback on that without having to be an expert. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do without needing to feel like you are some Suetonia, Lucy Liu style expert on gameplay, right? Did you hear any of that, Rycker?
I actually heard the bulk of it because
all right, good.
I only died on one PC.
Good. Well, I'm glad you only died on one PC. So what? So when you gave them the video, what happened? They didn't play it, or what was the issue?
So what had happened is that I didn't actually know that that it wasn't actually going to be up on the CSM thing, up on my little card, and so I thought, all right, I'm going to spend all this time, make this video, almost miss the cutoff, so that I can have this video and hopefully it'll be displayed on, where the little voter card. It wasn't. And so I thought to myself, all right, well, why did I waste all that time and almost miss the deadline making that video? I mean, I would have made the video anyway, but I wouldn't have been as stressed about it.
That's the other thing that is a secret that no one will tell you until it's over. Running for CSM is one of the most stressful things you can do in EVE. Let me just tell you, because it is really, really crazy. Talking in Stations, welcome. Thank you all for joining Rycker and I on the Meta Show Sunday edition. We appreciate it. Also known as Between Two Keepstars. It is beyond stressful. Even if you think you're doing well and people know you and everything like that, it's a stressful thing. And the amount of pressure that's put on you is pretty hard, especially if you're trying to do it the right way. And I know when you're trying to do videos, like that was the one, like every time I want to run for CSM, the one thing that stares me in the face is how the fuck am I going to come up with a video that was as good as the last one? Like, it's hard, and it's a deterrent, I think, for a lot of people when they see the amount of work that some players go through and put out in order to run for this. Makes them not want to do it. But I'm glad you took the plunge, Rycker. I appreciate that you did that. Are you going to do it again?
Oh, heck yeah.
No, I think that's great because Horde doesn't have a candidate next year, right? So you are the only one, at least one of the few that's run before that has some name ID. You've got your show on Sunday nights. You should be a slam dunk to be the Horde candidate next year, I would think.
I just can't go on a stream and make myself look stupid.
You can absolutely do that. You just have to be funny about it. I do it every Saturday. It's just, you got to go and have a good time. And if you're funny about it and you make people laugh, then you can get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, seriously, like I'm a grown ass man wearing a business suit and a hot tub, but I got more votes this time than I ever have before. So sometimes the gimmicks work. People like that stuff. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, it can definitely work. It's just, so when I did it, so when I got on, I was like, all right, I'm going to stick to my guns no matter what. I'm not going to be flippy flop. And when I got on the DTM interview, I made a whole ton of mistakes, which actually is going to end up really benefiting me for next year because I can basically go on YouTube and look at that video and say, okay, here's all the things that I did wrong. Here's how I'm going to fix it for my CSM 17 election. By the way, this is soon of my announcement that I'm running for CSM 17. And yeah, I can just take that, make all the changes I need, and go back at it. At least that's the plan.
Good. And I strongly suggest that anybody that has run before, even if you came up short, don't be scared. The worst is over. I mean, listen, there's the only thing that's worse than losing a CSM election is winning it, because then you have to serve for a year, and that's a lot of work. But you've been through some of the hardest part. So at the end of the day, having gone through it, you lost once. You can only go up from here. So I would strongly say keep going. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I would also definitely say that anyone who hasn't done it before and wants to try it, like, go for it. It's a whole lot of fun. You meet a ton of people, and you get to hang out on some cool streams.
Alvin, I have to give Alvin some more credit because he's absolutely right. The DTM interview was really frustrating, I think, for a lot of people because we would skip topics, and I know we did. You were on. Yeah, you were in the first battle royale with me, right? If I recall
No,
correctly.
I think I was in the third one.
You in the third? All right, so I was in the first one. I won the first one, then I let the guys do the next two without me. But you would go on and they would ask questions, and it was funny because it seemed like invariably whoever was the one that just got kicked out, the perfect question that would have made them shine was the next question that he asked after they were removed. And it was like, oh boy, it's kind of frustrating. What is Coach Subway getting hate for? What happened with Coach Subway, Corey? Hopefully you'll respond and then we can figure out, because I don't know what's going on with him. I think part of the problem with the DTM was that it was, at least the first time we did it, I think the time was just too long for the discussion, and there were too many people. But even when it was even then, it seemed to be a lot of the same people talking all the time. And then you had I didn't like the whole, whoever gets the top in the round gets to pick who loses thing. That sucks, because then that makes me look like a dickhead, because I don't want to pick the guy that I think is the biggest threat to me winning, because then I look like a douchebag. And I also don't want to pick the guy that did. I want to pick the guy that did the worst job, and got the fewest votes. But then there were times when they both got both bad. So I was like, I don't know. But hopefully he will reform that format, and we'll see that again, because I thought it was good. I think the number of shows out there that do a lot of CSM discussions is relatively small these days. So in terms of Ashtarothi did Yoma's work. He went out there and busted his ass and interviewed a ton of people, and I very much appreciate that he did that. Meta Show, we had our Imperium guys on a couple of times. That's about it. Push to Talk, I know, had some candidates on. Open Comms had some candidates on. You guys had candidates on. But we didn't see, I mean, the flagship, the old Talking Stations used to do tons of CSM shows. They don't do that many anymore. And I think it's harder now, given how more prolific Eve streaming is, how many more streamers we have now than we've had in the past, and how many more shows there are than we've had in the past. It's kind of hard still to get your message out unless you have a built-in audience for some of these places. So the more shows that have CSM interviews, I think it's helpful. And I'd like to think that's partially one of the reasons why the turnout was better this year than it's been in a while.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I guess one personal question for you is, who do you wish would have gotten on that didn't get on?
I was very sad to see there were two people that I really wanted to get on that didn't get on. The first was Mark Resurrectus, the wormhole guy. I really wanted him on because I felt like he was a smart guy, charismatic, understood his area, and we desperately need somebody that can talk the wormhole language to CCP. Now, granted, you don't have to be on the CSM to have influence with the company. And I know that Izuki and others have still been in contact with CCP after their terms, but I really would have liked to have seen him on there just so that there was another wormhole person. And then the other person that I would have liked to have seen on there was Phantomite, because he's been a good CSM member. I think I feel frustrated for him because he spent an entire year pushing super hard, trying to get CCP to focus on low-sec, focus on faction warfare, to give players things that they were asking for. That was his big mantra. I mean, the one thing he would, and he said this publicly, so I'm not revealing anything that's secret. The one question he always asked CCP, almost invariably, was, who asked for this? because his big thing was you really need to have somebody that's asking for something. Otherwise, why are you devoting resources to this when there are things out there that players want that you are not? And so I really wanted to see him be able to stick around and finally get to see, hopefully, if we can get them to put some attention on a low sec and faction warfare, that he would be there to help guide that and at least get some of the credit for it. I still want to give him some of the credit for it if we get that done this year. But that's it. But I mean, there are a lot of people I would have liked to have seen. I would like to have seen Arcia on. Obviously, I would have liked to have seen Mustache and Bruden on, and Micro, my buddies, and Baculus as well from the Imperium ballot. But unfortunately, look, this year you had so many really famous people running. I mean, besides the alliance leaders and everything, you had Sutonia, who's a past CSM member. You had Arcia, who is a co-host on Talking Stations. Everybody knew who she was. Stitch ran again. Ron USFC, the most prolific, most watched Eve streamer right now. Well, his numbers might be down because he's been doing Sea of Thieves a lot, but for the longest time, he was at the top of all of the streamer ratings. You had Phantomite, you had Rick Javix, who everybody knew. You had Jim Halscott from the Facebook group that everybody knew. You just had a ton of famous people that ran this time. So it was very tough. And with Merkel Chen, Innominate, Gobbins, and Villy all being on their last year of eligibility and all deciding to run again, it was just really hard for anybody else to break through. But next year is going to be crazy because there are going to be 4 open nullsec seats that are going to go to people that have not served on the CSM recently or before. So it's going to look a lot different than it does this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like, especially since I can run again.
And no, for me, 2 of the people that I think that I was a little bit sad that didn't make it on would definitely be Phantomite, mainly because he's a repeat guest on the show and everything he says seems to make sense. Granted, I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but one thing being the what was it? The monitor. But he's a smart guy, and I trust him with Eve. The other person is Maldavius because Pochvin needs help. Also, I think that having someone with actual experience in the game industry and experience with QA, I think would just, while I don't think I think having him there and having his game experience there would benefit the entire CSM, as in it would help them, talk the language of the devs to CCP. And he could really help to sort of critique the feedback that's being given by CSM in a way to where I think it would be more effective.
And I think, one of the biggest challenges that we have, I think, on the CSM is this perception that it's all null blocks, and the only way you can get elected is with a null block. And all the null blocks, they only get elected because the people are all sheep and they just vote how they're told. And I get frustrated with that because there are more players in high sec than in null, and everybody knows this. There are a lot of people, wormholers, if they can coalesce around a single candidate and vote the right way. And they did a pretty good job. They got really close this year. If they had cut a few more deals and were able to get somebody, on some of the bigger ballots besides ours. I know we had Mark and Teddy on the initiative ballot. If they had been able to get it on 1 or 2 of the other Pappy side ballots, I think they probably might have been able to limp in. But then they might have knocked Progot off, so I don't know, or Mike Azariah off, so I don't know if that would have been a good thing. But in the long run, there are these votes out there. The problem is that they're not that organized, and I don't even consider it. I don't consider it to be a bunch of sheep voting the way they're told. What I consider it to be is what we would call in the politics business, get out the vote. The GOTV campaigns run by the Imperium this year was phenomenal. I mean, we if you guys saw the Meta Show yesterday, we put the numbers up. Imperium turnout was 19.2%, and initiative turnout was 12.9%. That's the highest it's ever done because we never really had ballots before. And we're not telling, and frankly, you know what? When it comes down to it, we don't tell people how to vote. We're asking people, vote this way. We will make jokes and we will say, exercise your freedom to vote exactly the way the state tells you. We can tell people, absolutely do this because it's critical that you vote the right way and do it this way. But in the end, there's nobody going in the election booth with you there's nobody's going to see who you voted for except CCP. So if players decide they don't want to vote that way, they won't. And if you look, Gobbins' number, he had 3,771st ballot votes. But if you look at the Horde ballot and you track how many people actually voted the Horde ballot, it was about half that. So half of his people voted a different way than they were asked to vote. On the Imperium side, it was the opposite. Like Merkelchen had 7,726 votes. And in the end, I think something along the lines of like 65 or 6,700 of them were straight Imperium line votes. That is just, it's discipline and it's get out the vote. And the null blocks are very good at that. And that's one of the reasons why we keep managing to eke out these wins. So I think, frankly, having been a meme candidate in CSM 13 where nobody knew who I was, I came out of nowhere. I was in the initiative, but I was like 5th on the Imperium ballot because people liked my video. But I got on, and it was largely through the strength of going out there, busting my ass, and getting people to vote for me. And they did that, and that's how I won. And then since then, I've had the benefit of block support. But it's not impossible to win as an outsider, but it's very, very, you have to basically draw an inside straight in order to do it. And that's why it's usually only 1 or 2 people manage to pull it off. Phantomite did it last year. Omeka did it the year before. I did it the year before that. This year, I would say IBeast did it. I think Lucilu's getting on was really his thing. And it's just one of those things where it's kind of crazy that this still happens, but it works.
Yeah, no, it definitely works. When like I myself got 52 votes that were first rounders, and those were not block. Those were not block votes. So granted, I just didn't do it good enough. But yeah, that's 100% right. I hope I said that correct.
No, and I think you did. I mean, look, it's and J42 is right. A lot of people in Null don't want to invest the time to read into candidates. I think a lot of people in general don't want to invest the time to read into candidates. And that to me is frustrating, but it's also the nature of the beast. I mean, look, this is the CSM. It's not a government. It's not it's the Council of Stellar Management. We don't manage any stars. The reality is it's a focus group. It's more of a popularity contest than anything else. And you want good people in there that you think are going to advocate for the game, because we do have influence, but it's not like a life or death thing where if you vote the wrong person and your taxes are going to go up or they're going to start a war with somebody. So it's not something where, you can expect a lot of people to spend a lot of time, unless they like this kind of thing. And some people do, on research and doing all that kind of stuff. So in the end, it's very easy to say, all right, well, I know this guy, I like him, I'm going to vote for him. Or this guy's in my group, I'm going to vote for him. Or I heard of this guy, he's funny, he was in a hot tub riding a banana, I'll vote for him. That type of thing. And that tends to be what ends up happening. And the result is, when you have the large block votes, when you have the ability to get people to turn out and they don't get turned off when you remind them to go vote, those groups tend to do pretty well. And that has been the meta on the CSM, at least since CSM 6, the first time Matani ran. And I think since then it's been pretty solid, because I think the null blocks at the very least recognize that CSM does have influence, and you really want to have a seat at the table, null having a seat at the table. And I think this is one of the first elections where I felt like there was a little bit more of the tribalism outside of the null, and more like, all right, Imperium versus Pappy because of the war. That typically hadn't been a thing. Like last year, Villy and Gobbins were on the Imperium ballot. This year they were not. And in past years, you've had Imperium guys on various ballots put out by Horde and well, maybe not Horde, but Test and other groups like that. So this time around was a little bit different because of that. And I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. We all tend to work for the betterment of the game internally. Now, obviously, we have differences of opinion on what is good and what we want to see. I know Villy and I don't always agree. I know Gobbins and I don't always agree. Norman wants to say is, can we talk about who's good on this? I can't. Unfortunately, I can't. Between the NDA and the code of conduct, it's usually a bad idea for me to openly criticize other members for stuff that they've said inside meetings. I guess I can criticize them when they say things publicly, like we did yesterday with Gobbins on the CSM from his town hall the week before. But in general, my biggest thing is I don't care which side of the war you're on. I don't care what area of space you're in. As long as you show up and put in the work, I'll work with you, and I think you're a good CSM member. And we had a lot of good CSM members on the CSM.
One thing that I did notice though about so looking at the results, it got me kind of a little bit concerned because, and then I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but what nullsec essentially proved is that they could pretty much dominate the votes if they split them all up. Because in past years, and correct me if I'm wrong, they've all sort of done one unified ballot, but this year they all sort of did separate ballots trying to get their own people, and they ended up taking more seats.
I wouldn't say they took more seats this year. I think in general, we tend to take about the same number of seats because here's the thing. Depending on turnout, it always comes down to voter turnout in these elections. The higher the turnout, the better the organized groups do, because it's very hard to patch together a win when you need 2,000, 3,000 votes to win. And if you look back, it's funny, as recently as, let me pull up the list here, as recently as like CSM 11, which was 2016, you could get on the CSM with 1,000 votes. Pfeiffer from NC Dot got on with 964. Nash Cadaver from the Bastards got on with 1,001. You know, the judge, or Sullen from Bastion was on the Imperium ballot. He got on with 1,034. There were 22,000 people that voted in that election. That's it. So when the elections are low, you can piece together. It tends to be easier for the candidates that don't have the block support to get on. When turnout is high and you need a lot of votes, I think it makes it easier for the block voters because we tend to be able to get our voters out better than other folks can, and that tends to benefit us. But if you look back, I mean, CSM 13 was almost all null candidates to the point that everybody freaked out. You had Jintan and Steve Renukin and Sutonia were pretty much the only ones that were not. Aerith, me, and Aminet, Killaby, Mark, Sword Dragon, the judge, we were all nullsec candidates. And then you look at 14, it was pretty much the same way, although this time you had Izuki instead. And you had Omeka, but everybody else on there was a nullsec candidate. The same now. It just that's the thing. It's not that high sec doesn't matter or low sec doesn't matter or wormhole space doesn't matter. It's just that when in any kind of an election, organizing your people, getting them to show up, getting them to vote, and vote an entire ballot of 10 names is hard unless they have a real reason, like a person that they want to go out there and vote for, and that people that they trust are telling them to go do it. And that, I think, is what sets us apart, and that's why we do as well as we do.
All right, that's definitely fair. What were we going to talk about? I want to say the meta show. Maybe, I don't know.
If you want, did you watch it yesterday? What did you think? If you didn't, if you did.
So I watched the first part, but I was at work because overtime, yay. It was a decent episode. I was expecting a little bit more herf blurf from Merkel-chan because that's partly the reason why I wanted to watch it so bad yesterday. Based off of him getting called out for not understanding STV.
That was you know, I gave him the opening. He was kind of being good, but you know, I had it actually was a funny story, and I told it Friday night, but I'll tell it again for the benefit of the audience. So you guys know both sides. Everybody is in a ton of spies. There's spies everywhere. So somebody had linked to me Gobbins' ping in our general chat in the initiative Discord and said, "Hey, did you see this?" And I said, "Yeah, Gobbins is nobody's talking about." Within like 5 minutes, Gobbins had texted me like, "What do you mean by this?" So I had like a 15-minute conversation with him about why I thought his argument that we had wasted votes and had trapped votes at the top, and that's why we didn't get Baculus or Bruden or any of those guys on. And I went through it with him and tried to explain the way the STV works. Nothing is blocked. You need people that have a base of support outside of one single group in order to get on. And unfortunately, some of the guys in the middle of our ballot did not have that, whereas folks on the other side did. I mean, ProGod is a 2-time CSM member. Everybody knows who he is. He's been on international television talking about EVE Online. People know him, and as much as we love Baculus and Bruden and those guys, they don't have the same kind of credit as PGL did. So people are going to see PGL. They're going to vote for him, even if they're not in test, even if they're not in Pappy. Because they're going to say, "Oh, I know that guy. He's in FC. He's the one that yelled about 2 fucking dictors, and I thought that was funny, so I'm going to vote for that guy." And I had to laugh because it's like, we know how the STV works, and I wanted Merck to go off a little bit more, but he was very good yesterday. But I know that it triggered him a lot because we spend so much time trying to figure this thing out and maximize our ability to do that. And I think all of us were a little nervous this year because we didn't know what was going to happen with the war. We didn't know what the turnout was going to be on the other side. We felt good. Our internal, we have our exit polling, and our internal numbers were pretty solid, and we knew that we did better than last year, but we had no idea what the other guys were going to do. And I think when we saw the first numbers and when we got the leak, the 2-hour early leak of the results, which was the most CCP thing that has happened in a while, that was very, very helpful to us because it demonstrated that we did what we wanted to do. And we got the guys on that we expected we could get on. And we helped Suetonia a lot. He got almost 800 votes from the Imperium ballot, which is pretty solid.
Which is kind of interesting because he was actually at the bottom of the Imperium ballot, I believe.
He was number 9, and Ibis was number 10.
Yeah, interesting because after looking at the results, it kind of seemed like both coalitions were right because they just seemed to get the same number of people on. Like it was relatively even in, okay, this is how many Imperium people got on and this is how many Pappy people got on. So to say one side or the other doesn't really understand the STV system, it seems like both of them had a good understanding, but just took different ways in different routes.
I to a certain extent, I agree with that, but I also would say that I think ProGod getting on was less about some kind of special super smart maneuvering on the part of the guys that were creating the ballots on the other side, and more along the lines of just the fact that like he was a household name, people knew who he was, he was going to get a number of first round votes, and he took advantage of that, and he lasted long enough by being high enough on enough ballots that in the end he was able to limp in and get in there in the number 9 slot, which is good. That the guy that comes in last place in the CSM, they still call him CSM, and he was not last; he was second to last. So they managed to pull that off, and I think that was useful. But in the end, it's like, look, you've got a coalition of players that are all coordinated, trying to get as many of their folks on as they can, who can turn out potentially, tens of thousands of voters if they all vote the way they're told. You should be able to get on 3 or 4 people. You needed about 3,200 votes per member to get on this time. Imperium, we had about 10,000 votes, and that was enough to give us 3 and help Suetonia. And I think Horde, the Pan Fam plus Pappy side, or the overall Pappy side, had like close to 12,000, which was enough to get 3 on plus get ProGod over the line. So it was good. I think both sides did what they needed to do. They should be happy about it. And you know what? I don't mind the drama. It's always fun to have something to yell at and to debate. But Asia is asking, what's up with the PCU counts lately? So you want to talk about that now?
I was about to go into that. So for those of you who don't know, the PCU counts have actually been down recently, and it's caused some concern among the community. Does that pretty much hit the nail on the head of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's what happened. What I think is happening right now is you have a lot. It's basically a perfect storm. You have the end of COVID. You have the summer. You have the summer in Iceland, and you have the war kind of in a stalemate, kind of stagnation phase. So, what does that look like for the rest of the game? Well, on one side, you have 2/3 plus of the game glued up to each other, not really fighting each other because they're focused on taking 1DQ, the last 1DQ Constellation of Dell from Goons. Goons are backed into 4 or 5 systems, and it is kind of on a break right now because we just finished a deployment. And we were deployed to UAMON to mess with Pandemic Horde and force them to jump clone back to Ethereum Reach and Clava Lava and their home areas to defend them. But when they're not doing anything in Delve, there's no reason for us to harass them because they're not going to jump clone. They're just going to stay there. So it did make sense for us to keep pushing those guys while we were up there. So we weren't really achieving the goal that we were set out to achieve. So the result is everybody's doing something else. People are going outside. They're going to the pool. They're playing Final Fantasy 14. They're playing WoW Burning Crusade. They're playing Sea of Thieves. They're all of these other games that have had expansions or different stuff. And you're seeing the player counts in EVE drop. And then you combine that with summertime when CCP tends to go into a moribund state where they don't do a ton of major gameplay changes because there's like 1 month of the year that the weather doesn't suck ass in Iceland. So everybody takes that entire month off work. So it's very hard to get and talk to anybody up there. And I think all of that combined has caused the PCU numbers to drop. And I think people are seeing that and the frustrations with the war, and then seeing CCP put out these advertisements in ways that are written so as to trigger the community pretty hard, and then also that are delivered in creative ways that we haven't seen them really do before, like notifications. I mean, I know that they have had those in the game, but it's rare for anybody that's not a new player to see that stuff. And I think that it all came together last week and kind of blew up in everybody's faces. So it's frustrating to me that we're back here to another summer of rage. It's like every year we go into this summertime period where tempers flare and people start freaking out. And some of this stuff is unforced errors on CCP's part. Some of it is, them doing things that they think they need to do to keep the game going, despite the fact that players don't like it, because they are of the opinion that a lot of the complaining is just complaining for the sake of complaining. It's frustrating. So, I get frustrated with that. I get frustrated with the people that are pulling the Eva's dying crap because it's been forever. I mean, come on, it's been dying since 2003. The PCU numbers are down. I don't expect that they're going to stay down forever. But it would be nice if CCP would look at that and say, all right, well, the numbers are dropping a little bit. How about we spend a little bit of time, a little bit of money giving veteran players the stuff that they want while we're doing all this new player experience stuff? Because they have been focused so solely on new players for so long that the breadcrumbs that they're tossing to veterans in the form of like blops changes or fixing cloaky camping, or at least putting something in the game that's supposed to fix cloaky camping, or buffing marauders, that type of stuff. It's nice. It's stuff we've asked for. I mean, getting rid of skill points on T3C is something we asked for, something we all are happy that they're doing. But that's not a real substitute for new content or new content drivers or tools that we can give to folks to go out there and make content in the game. And that's not what they're really focused on. They're focused on a lot of new player stuff. And I mean, the new player stuff has downstream benefits, but at the end of the day, I'm a veteran. I've been here for 15 years. I don't give a shit if you're going to redo the NPE for the 37th time. It does not impact me. But when I see my friends in Pochman complaining that issues that they have been complaining about for months have not gotten fixed, and the region was launched half done and has stayed that way, and they're all getting frustrated to the point that they're blowing up their own stuff. That's the kind of thing where it's like, guys, all right, we need to get we need to get some attention on some of this stuff sooner rather than later. People are mad. They want to see action. And you throw scarcity into the mix, that whole thing, everybody's already on edge. They can't do the stuff they used to do as well as they could. The stuff that they used to do, that they had fun, the aspirational things that they did are very hard to attain anymore for people that didn't already get there. And while there have been some benefits, like right now, battle cruisers are cheaper than they've ever been. It's great. You want to go whelp a hurricane fleet, nobody's going to give you a hard time. But if you lose a carrier or you lose a dread, you have fun trying to replace that. So it's just, I'm a little concerned that we need some positive stuff for veterans here soon, because I think a lot of people are looking around and they're like, I played this game for a long time. Maybe there's something better out there.
So real quick, I would like to introduce DTM135. He apparently disagrees with Brisc on some stuff. So
Brisc, you're
I'm going to let him have
this. I'm going to tell you, dude. I hate to say it. Like, you're totally out of touch with most of the player base here, man. You guys might. Well, all right. Let's look at the reality of the situation.
How dare you?
Like, first off, right? Like, we need scarcity. This needs to happen, and I'm sure CCP, and I hope CCP flips the switch at the right time. But we got to get rid of the stockpiles. We got to get rid of everything.
It's been 18 months. You think we haven't gotten rid of the stockpiles yet?
No, I think the null bears are too scared to use their big toys.
Oh, come on. Oh, you mean stockpiles of ships?
Yeah, ships.
Well, what do you think was going to happen when they make it impossible to replace them?
So this is my personal opinion. Like, this just comes down to like a problem with like how we treat EVE Online. Like, human beings are generally loss adverse. We take negative stimuli way more important, or way more to heart than we do positive stimuli most of the time. And like, a lot of these dudes who live in null just need to get over themselves, and they need to start whelping carriers and dreads and supers and just enjoying their time and playing EVE. Like, I imagine the people in 1DQ might be like talking like, oh, we're having a great time or whatever. And maybe in some regards they are, but like, go out there, get out there, like, lose ships. Like, sitting in a station all day and not losing your shit is like not the way to play EVE Online. Like, asset accumulation, sure, that's something you can aim for, but like, what's the point? Just burn it all down and restart over.
I'm not going to argue with that. If you look at my kill board, I lose shit all the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking.
No, I understand
the player base. Like, yours, like, oh, the vets, like, we need blah blah blah. And well, all right, that was a really bad impression of you, and that's not really your tone. But my point is like,
your voice needs to be deeper.
My voice needs to,
and you need to sound sexier.
Like a 12-year-old Dutch girl right now is what I sound like. But like, realistically, like, the veteran player base needs to just go out and lose ships and do fine. Like, if they're bored, it's because of your own fault for not getting out and doing stuff. Maybe that's a really bad way of putting it, but I think it's really true that the old player base, like, just a lot of them just don't needlejack. Like, the fact that I think you and me had a conversation about, like, was it you and me who had a conversation about needlejacking, and like, you had people complaining about needlejacks and stuff like that? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talked about it.
Go get content, go shoot stuff. Like, that's just the way that this game should be rolling out. Like, if you're not getting content in your home space, go needlejack and go get content somewhere. Like, maybe I'm one of the few people who plays this game like to actually have fun and engage with it, and not just build assets or build industries or something like that. But like, the age of empire building, like, we gave it an attempt. It's not going to work out, so like, let's go actually play the video game now.
But did it not work out? I mean, here's the thing. I don't well,
think the player base has gone down, right? Like, realistically, we've been in the age of empire building for like 5 years.
Has it really?
Yes, it has.
No, I think that
when there was more entropy in the group, right? Like, things were better. When there was more crazy shit going on, and destruction was spread out over smaller groups, over larger, vast swaths of space, it was much better.
I think we all have a tendency to look at the past with rose-colored glasses. I never thought people would go back and say, man, 2018 with all these rorks in space and super ratting and everything, that was a great time. I never thought we'd hear that. But we're hearing that today. And here's the thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with empire building. I think there's different ways to play the game.
Be fair, there's nothing wrong with empire building, but it doesn't work as a video game model.
I think it does. I don't think there's any issues. I think, frankly,
the problem is the more empire. The problem is the more content you give to empire builders, the more you're taking away from like smaller and medium-sized.
It doesn't have to be that way, though. That's the thing. There's nothing stopping you guys from going out and filamenting. There's nothing stopping you guys from roaming if you have empires out there doing their thing at the same time. The fights are different.
the tools shut down a lot of like content for even medium-sized group. Like jump gates are one of the biggest fucking sources of like, but at the same time content denial and content generation, because they generate content for larger groups because you can move more people through space quickly, but they shut it down for smaller groups because like we can't fight somebody in their home space. Our only option is the Black Ops drop. And like with nullification changes and with cloaky camping changes, not only can I not lower ADMs, local is now de facto the most powerful tool in the game. It's absolutely ridiculous.
You know what? You and I have gone round and round about this stuff.
I know.
And
I know we have.
And I think, you know, when it comes down to it, it's frustrating to me.
I'm not even gonna lie. I just came on here to bully you. I'm sorry.
Well, so I mean, you could try. You can try.
We're gonna, despite it all, like, and me being wicked aggressive right now. Like, I think some of the things that I've brought up though are really, really true. And like, the fact that you think the player count hasn't gone down, it's gone down. Like we're seeing it go down even now. Like we got a big bump because of COVID. We got a big bump because of the war. And like people are getting tired of that stuff, and we're seeing people leave, and we're seeing the PCU go back down again. So
but who's leaving? Who's leaving?
I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Like Phantomite just did a huge survey. He got 1,600 responses. So we're gonna
I appreciate that he did that, and I have the data, and we've been looking at it. But I'll tell you, CCP has all that data too. They track all this stuff at far better granularity levels than we did with the survey. Even though I helped him with it, and I'm happy with it.
Coming out and talking about it, like
because first of all,
isn't an argument in my favor though, because they're like they're removing a lot of the empire building tools and like the resource accumulations. Like they clearly have realized that like players are quitting. This is not working, so we're changing the way the game is going to be played.
I don't think that's why they're doing it. Okay. I think their concern is that they had a different philosophy a couple years ago, and they have changed their philosophy because the people that had that philosophy before no longer with the company, and the people that are currently at the company have different views on how they want things done. Like I remember pre-2016, the big issue was they wanted people to be able to use their space, and the farms and fields thing became a legitimate thing that CCP encouraged. They wanted people to use their space. They wanted people to like to build things in their space. You build up your space, make it your own. Here's your Citadel. Here's your Satoyo. Here's your moon goo that you can't compress. So we're gonna make you refine it here where you live, and you build your capitals here where you live, and that type of thing. And now they've moved completely away from that. They want everything to be interconnected, move stuff around. You go to take the stuff to Jita and sell it. Excuse me. And they have changed that philosophy. But here's the thing. All of these changes that have taken away tools from empire builders, that have taken rock walls and gotten them out of space, gotten supers and stuff out of space. Do you really think that has made anything better for you small gang guys? Because I'll tell you, when I go out small gang wise, it's not. There's
I would every day of the week I would rather fight 20 caracals than fight one super pilot.
That all depended on where you went. Okay, because there were plenty of places where you weren't going to fight.
Like these tools and removing them from like so you brought up supers, right? I think this is a really good example. Like the super nerfs have been absolutely in my opinion, well done and beautiful. In some ways, I don't think they went far enough, but like I understand how they rebalanced it. Like the super should be an anti-cap tool. The response to a small gang fleet in your space shouldn't be, Lamau, I'm just going to drop my super and fax. Like and how cheap they got. Like I don't know, man. In order for you to give these supers and these big toys the power that they had, you need to make them expensive, right? If Titans go back up to 400 billion, 300 billion, 200 billion, 100 billion, give them the boson back. Balance stuff for the price it is, but CCP has to do a better job.
But that's the thing. You absolutely cannot balance ships on price because the market dictates the price. And if we start going down that route, it's going to cause all kinds of problems.
Who dictates like where the resources are and how easy they are to get?
The players do.
CCP does.
They can put the resources where they are, but it all comes down to what the players are going to spend the time going out and mining, where they're going to go do it, how easy it is to move it around, all that type of stuff. And that is stuff that CCP can't influence in an easy way.
I kind of agree in some regard. Like the market's always going to decide the value of it, but CCP can set the lower end for what things can get. Like you make it like, because they look at the time, like you say they have all this granular data, right? Like maybe they need to have an economist back on grid or a group of economists back on their team and like paying attention to what the fuck's going on, because they really
they
need
have
this.
Look, fuck you for making me defend CCP, first of all. Second of all,
dude, before this you were all
no, fuck you for making me defend them, first of all. Second of all, they have a financial team. They have an economy council that meets every week or so to talk about the trends, and they look at the MER and they look at their internal numbers and they decide what they're doing. I don't like any of the stuff that these guys come up with. I have been a critic of the ecosystem, the scarcity changes for a while. I know you like it, but I'm not talking about scarcity in terms of like.
I don't like it.
There being fewer supers out, because frankly, there are fewer supers out because there's nothing for you to do with them unless you're in delve.
Hold on. You're straw manning my whole point here, because like I don't like scarcity. And when I talk about scarcity, I'm not talking about less supers being out. I'm talking about how much stuff costs, how much minerals and resources are being produced, how many ship holds are being produced. I'm talking about like in the grand overarching scheme of how this game is being played right now and how it was getting played for, the last 4 to 6 years. We needed some scarcity changes, and people are going to complain, but I think I've said this since the beginning of my streaming career. The only way to fix how cheap Titans and supers and carriers and dreads and faxes we're getting and Rorks we're getting was going to upset part of the player base, was going to be a painful thing to go through. I think even you can.
I disagree. It could have been fun. They could have made it more likely that these ships would get used because they were replaceable. Now they're hard to replace, so nobody's using them. And then, of course, you throw in the fact that there are so many of them out there that when they do get used, you get to the bleeding edge of what the servers can handle, and then it causes all kinds of problems. So people are afraid to use them because nobody wants to lose them. They're hard to replace, that type of thing. It's like this vicious circle. My whole take was, if you want to deal with super cap proliferation, here's how you deal with it. Find reasons for them to get in space and make it easier to blow them up. So that's why I didn't have a problem with the EHP nerfs. I know some people didn't like it. I know the wormholers hate the fax changes because it fucked up the metas that they had internally. But again, you can't balance the entire game around wormholes. It's a bad idea. But
wormhole should be nerfed in income generation anyways.
The problem, though, is when you take away things like bosun ratting, you take away things like super ratting, you take away the ability of Rorks to mine as well as they did, what's the result? They aren't in space. So they're not being used. They're not dying. They're not being used, but they're not dying. So they're still there. But that's content that's gone. The whaling content that we used to get, we would kill 2 or 3 Rorks a day on whaling fleets. Now, if you catch 2 or 3 in a week, that's a great week.
So, but the thing is those Rorks were being replaced so quickly. Like killing 2 or 3 a week doesn't. Even then,
it was less about killing them as it was about these are a capital asset that people will defend. And if we go tackle one of these and it panics, there's a good chance we get a fight.
Fighting response fleets, and you know that.
We were fighting response fleets all the time.
The context of what you're talking about, whaling fleets, like I've been on a lot of the whaling fleets, especially the Olmeca ones, and like I know what they're about. They're just about killing big targets, and that's fine. But like
that was Olmeca.
I'm not is worth 1.2, 1.4 bill. Like who cares?
That's the thing. I don't give a shit about the Rourke. We want to fight. We want the fights from the defense fleet.
That's why you're just going out causing you're just going. You're not in a whaling fleet. You're just in a fleet going.
We're in a whaling. We're in Kiki Stukas. We were in Kikis. We were on a Pando fleet out there. We were out to kill the Rourkes. If we kill the Rourke, great. If we kill a super, great. But the thing we all really wanted was the big defense fleet fights. That was the fun. Like killing a bunch of caracals or killing a whole fleet of fraternity guys trying to come out and drop supers on us again and getting out and doing it. That was the fun part of it.
I'm glad, but like that has nothing to do, in my opinion, with what we're really talking about, right? Like you could go do that now anyways.
You can't do that now because the ships aren't out there. They're not in places that
I land on grid with Rorks all the time. What are your scouts doing?
I don't know, because I'll tell you right now, I've been going out and me and Merc and Nam and the guys have been doing 100-round jumps and needle jacking all over the place. And I cannot tell you the last time we found a Rourke
all the time, dude. I have so much fun. Go up to
where are you going? Where are you
everywhere.
going?
I just know how to catch stuff. though. It's
Okay,
also.
all right.
I also
So
don't know what you're
you
going
know how
out
to
in.
do it. Everybody else can't figure it out.
No, I don't think it's that I know how to do it and everybody else can't figure it out. I just think you're being a little disingenuous here.
I'm not.
Like
I'm
maybe
telling
the
you right.
Rooks
I'm
aren't
telling
as
you my
prolific
personal
as before,
experience.
but you can go find content. You can go get content. It might not be the fight you like, but I don't really think you're about that. You've talked about just getting the fight for the fight's sake. So like I think this is kind of disingenuous.
I'm not being
Like
disingenuous.
Rooks
I am
are
telling
out there.
you,
You just have to go get them.
if you look at the number of rock walls that are dying now and you compare it to 2 years ago, it is off a cliff. If you look at the numbers of supers dying now and you compare it to 2 years ago, it's off the cliff. They're just not, because they're not in space. And why aren't they in space? Because they've all been nerfed to the point that there's nobody out there generating any wealth with them. So the only time you see them in space is when they're moving. Maybe a hyperdunk super, although that stuff has changed because of these mobile observatories. I don't think it was as bad as they think it was going to be. And
so you want to go back to the era of like 1 bell carriers.
I want to go back to the era of ships in space. That's what I want to go back to.
1 bell carriers is what you want, because it sounds like you're advocate. So what is the exact way? Like you want income sites for supers is essentially what you're telling me.
Bumpage just said that your kill board has 1 cap on it this whole month, and you're calling me disingenuous?
I don't
You
kill
son of a
caps,
bitch.
though. I don't kill
Have I
caps,
killed more?
dude.
I bet I've killed more caps this month.
Yes,
than
you have. I don't kill a lot of caps though. Like I mostly kill other shit. Like you'll find like 1 bill ickies on my kill board. You'll find Lokis. You'll find just whatever, dude. I just go around and kill stuff. Like I don't live and breathe the capital meta. I never really have. Like my usage of caps is deemed for different things that I do when I'm fighting larger groups and I'm like up fighting, right? Like I drop carriers on Rooks every once in a while or something like that.
I 100% want more capitals in space. Absolutely. And yes, I campaigned on, and I will continue to campaign on, them creating some kind of thing to run for each level of capital so that there's something out there that is worth it
What
to
kind
get
of
these things in
income
space that we
generation
can
are
go
these
catch.
things putting out?
I don't know, but it's not good because nobody's using them.
Okay, so
Right.
like so you're looking at a house without a door and saying like there should be a door. And when I ask you how big the door should be for how many people we can get through, you're like, "Oh, I don't know." Like how is this? Who are you leaving?
I don't
this
have
up
to answer
tell?
that question. What I have to say is
You
here is the
trust
problem.
CCP to do this properly?
You have to, because they're the ones
Guys.
that are going to do it. Here's the thing.
Guys,
I point.
Yeah, what's
what?
up, Phantomite?
All right. What? Oh, yeah. All right. Finally, Phantomite. Will you
dude,
please tell
tag team.
DTM he's full of
Tagging
shit?
out.
I am
Please.
here to complain about both of you
How dare you?
because the issue, I don't understand this obsession from your side, Brisc, or from your side, DTM, with it always being about, with the goal being to kill Rorquals and
My goal is
supers and capital. Wait,
We like to
wait.
kill things. We like to kill big things.
Wait, specifically gigantic whales of targets. The issue here is that there are. Here's what I want to do, Eve. I want to fight other people who are looking to fight. I'm not looking to just get a kill, right? But the problem is, Rorquals and supers, when they did operate, essentially operated almost entirely within the realms of somewhere that could bring 50, 100, 500 people to defend. Now, that is not essentially getting a fight. Those lands are places where you can only get kills. I don't want kills, I want fights. And those places in nullsec exclusively bring blobs. They do not bring fights. They bring kills and blobs.
That's a fight. That you bring
They
your
bring
blob,
kills
and you wait for the other guys to
okay,
bring their
hold on.
blob, and then you
Hold
get
on.
the fight with the blobs. Look, listen, I am not saying that I expect the small gang guys, the 20-man groups, the 30-man groups to go out there and do this. But there should be content. If I bring 150 guys in a Kiki fleet out to get a Rorqual, I want the response fleet to be 150 guys.
That is
that's
block
the level
versus
of fight
block.
that
That is block.
Why is
versus
that?
block
Why can't I not ask for
They're
stuff
on
that I
your
want to play?
doorstep. They're literally next door.
Correct, and they won't do it.
Why not?
Wait, hold on. Are you telling
I
me
asked
if you
Gobbins.
undock-
He's the one that won't fight.
if you docked 50
Brisc-
dudes? Hold on.
Brisc,
If you undocked
wait,
50 dudes and went into T5Z, you don't think they'd fight you?
We do that every day. We do
do
that
they-
all the time, and
they fight
sometimes
you?
they come and fight, and sometimes they don't.
Oh, okay, so
But there's
the content
but
is-
listen, the whole point is there's room for all of this stuff. The reason why we like
No,
going after
no, there's
capitals
not.
is because capitals have enough value that they are worth defending, that you will get fights. They generate fights. Somebody tackles a super, you're going to get a response. Nowadays, not so much because the thing's going to be dead by the time the response fleet gets there. But with work walls, they still have a panic. You can still get a defense fleet. It still makes sense to defend them. They're still expensive enough that you want to defend them. That's the whole point. Now, yes, there's going to be blobbing, but you know what? That's Eve.
That's Eve.
You're not going to find a way around it. But
yes,
I want to make it possible to do that more because it's not as big a thing as it was before.
You are going to cap blobbing if CCP develops a game in a way that doesn't mean that endlessly growing into very few, very large groups is the optimum way to play the game.
10 out of 10. That's a great idea.
It doesn't have to be, but there should not be artificial limits that make it impossible for groups to get big.
No, there shouldn't be artificial limits. They shouldn't limit fleet sizes to 10 people. They shouldn't limit the number of people that can be in a system at once. They shouldn't do any of this. But what they should do is they should stop designing mechanics that specifically require that you be part of a blob to be able to use these machines.
J42's like, Brisc, shut up and hear what Phantomite has to say. I know what he's going to say. I have heard him say it 10,000 times over the last year. I know I could give his fucking speech as well. I know what he's saying.
Wait, Squishy joined Karma Fleet? I guess I have to kick him out of the B team there.
Goddamn right. Squishy is now a filthy, dirty blobber.
Well, he's always been a blobber. Like, just look at his board.
Can I interject and say, Brisc, earlier in the show, you said that there's not a lot of Rorks and stuff being killed, but on the meta show, Matani literally talks about how how goons kill Rorks from Brave all the time. So is it just that there are no Rorks in general except Brave ones?
Hold on. Rycker, Rycker, do remember that the meta show is an entertainment show, not a news show.
Wait, is this an entertainment show or a news show?
This is a meta show Sunday edition, so it is an entertainment show. Listen.
Did I go put on my crab suit? Am I doing this the wrong way?
You're totally wrong. You can we will tease them and we go after them all the time. But I'll tell you, I don't think we've killed a Brave Rourke in a couple days. But if you look, I pulled up Zkill right now. The number of Rourkes dying, there have been 2 so far today. There were 4 yesterday, 3 on the 25th of June, 4 on the 24th, 1 on the 23rd, 4 on the 22nd. You go back to 2018, and it was 18, 20, 30 a day. It was all over the place. They're just not out in space the way they were 2 or 3 years ago.
Rourke losses have dropped on average by about a quarter to like 40%, depending on what month you're looking at, right? And that's not like a particularly amazing. And then in recent months, it's gotten significantly worse. But regardless, like I don't think that despite it all, like Rourkes aren't out in space. I just think that never mind. They are out in space, but I think it goes back to like what we need. And we need supers and titans to be valuable. We need capital losses to be valuable. The hashtag already replaced mentality was not particularly a great thing for the game. And we need to get back to meaningful content for the null blocks again, where wiping out a big fleet of things matters. And like, sure, I think the people who actually get hurt the most on this are the small gang people and are the smaller guys. But like, I don't hear these guys complaining about this.
They've quit.
No, I don't know. Whoa, I don't know about that. Like a lot of the people that I know that are in the community are still there. So I don't know if they've quit.
I don't want to spend all this time belaboring block versus block type shop, because here's the thing. The blocks should be fighting the other blocks. The small gang guys should be fighting the small gang guys and fucking around whatever they can do to mess with the big blocks. Yeah, but if you're expecting that the small block or medium-sized alliances are going to be able to take on the big guys, that's just dumb. It's never going to be that way.
Wait. So there should not be able to be certain tactics used by small and medium-sized groups?
There are tactics that you can use to fuck with those guys. But look, I mean, you guys are saying, why can't Costa Rica fight the United States in a war? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
You're both being thick again.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not here for
just call me fat.
Conversation.
You just called me fat.
Brisc is stinky and everybody knows it.
I don't want a 100-man group to be able to fight a 3,000-man group and win. I want there to not be 3,000-man groups. I want there to be 1,000-man.
What drives me crazy? Why do you want to dictate how many friends I'm allowed to play with?
Because unfortunately, wait. Because unfortunately, the sheer size of groups dictates to the rest of Eve what fun can and can't be had.
No, it doesn't.
That's true.
Yes, it
and
does.
No, it
Wasn't that
doesn't.
why wasn't that why this whole war was started in the first place? Because goons were stifling content.
I
Well,
mean,
that's what ProGod says, and now you guys are out there stifling content. Apparently, it's a good thing and should be
Probably
lauded and
bad.
praised.
have
I
an
don't get it.
entity inside of EVE Online that no matter what war is going on can put their hand on the scale and change the outcome of the war. Do you guys think that's good for the game?
I mean,
What?
as a small guy, I'm not even wanting to attempt to change the outcome of the war as a small guy.
I kind of agree in some regard, but like for the health of the game, do you think it's good to have an entity that is out there that is so big and powerful that they can put their hands on the scale of a war and change the war? Like the only reason we're seeing
Here's what I'd like to ask, because I think this is a more interesting question. Phantomite, have you guys enjoyed the last year of not having the big guys pay attention to you at all?
My area of space no longer has any groups flying between 20 to 70 man fleets basically at all. The only groups that exist fly 200, 300, 400 man groups and Batphone other large groups around them, even when they already outnumber their enemies. There's barely any solo going around, and sorry to Ron, not because of gate camps, because that's not really a thing that's going on in the area. Basically, there is just no content whatsoever, even for the groups that are larger than us, because like a group that can bring 4 times our numbers might reinforce a thing, and then what are we meant to do? What are we meant to do with like 4 times fewer people? And
DTM, didn't you just say it was better for small gang guys?
It
Didn't
doesn't
you
give
just say
them
it was
any-
better for small gang, DTM?
I'm
Phantomite is
talking
kind of
about
low
sec.
I said like, so there's 2 ways to take this. One, economically, it's way worse for small gang guys. Unless you live in a wormhole, you're probably getting dicked on a daily, or unless you play super target choosy, right? We can adapt our play styles, right? I think overall this has probably been worse for people who don't have the kind of easy-isk generation that's provided in like wormholes or in nullsec. So when I think of small gang groups that are really adversely affected, guys who just stage out of Jita and just like Plex every month, like those are the guys who like they buy, you know, 20, 40, $50 worth of Plex, and that's what they do for the month, and then they go get content, right? Like those guys are kind of adversely affected. I don't know about how many solo people have quitted. Phantomite's survey will probably tell us way more about that, but all of the major people that I know that play solo, small gang, and EVE Online are still playing. I haven't seen us lose anyone, and I would say that we have, at least in the streaming community, more streamers than ever right now in the solo small gang community. But we've always made up the majority of hours watched for like top 100 streamers or whatever, top 50.
So,
DTM,
all right, go ahead, Rycker. Sorry.
I was about to say one question I'd like to ask you is, so you mentioned smaller groups not having, well, solo guys not having a way to make money. What about like abyssal sites? Like those are relatively easy to do if you know what you're doing, and you can make a killing, like a lot of money.
That's another source of income, I think, too. One of the
What drives me crazy about that, though? How about here? You guys are going to appreciate this. I absolutely fucking hate the fact that one of the best ways to generate ISK right now is a 20-minute solo run that nobody can have an impact on, unless they get lucky and can scan you down at the end. That drives me crazy.
Have to be lucky because it's just on scan, but I'm guessing that you very much feel that the moving of the was it both level 4s and 5s from making you flashy to turning it to be not flashy anymore?
Yes.
Level 3.
My issue is
I think that
I
gather that they changed it because people just weren't really doing them very much, which I think was a very stupid reason to change it away from that.
That's the thing. Like, that's the thing. So it frustrates me. Like, I think that the most risky, and when I say risk, I don't mean like the risk of you losing a ship, because abyssals, yeah, you're going to lose stuff. you're going to lose it to NPCs. Who gives a shit about NPCs killing people? The risk should be that you get tackled by another player, and that generates player versus player content. That's what I want the risk there to be. So I think the more likely it is that you will be forced to engage in PvP while you are doing your income generating content, that should be the most rewarding. And the stuff that you can do relatively safely because you're fighting NPCs in a instance pocket, that should not be like the best way to generate money in the game anymore. It annoys the shit out of me. I really, really don't like that.
Well, I think the best ways of generating money are actually safer right now. Like wormhole, roach fleets are way safer.
I agree. I don't like that either.
I think official risks are very different than other styles of income generation because when you come out of there, you can easily get NATO ganked. You get enough dudes in a NATO, you can gank anything, and they're probably going to generate a profit if you're running T6s from that gank. I think that.
So just do it in Jita where they can't do it.
Well, NATO ganking can happen anywhere.
I thought they couldn't scan stuff down in Jita anymore. Didn't they make some change to Jita that made it harder for these guys to gank in Jita?
Well,
yeah, they stopped you from anchoring depots.
Right. That was it. That was right.
But I think it's just just such a joke that depots are a way of stopping people from insta-filamenting, and that insta-filamenting is a thing in the first place anyway. I think both of those things are ludicrous.
So, I mean, again, like that's part of my big issue. But look, there should be. I want empires fighting empires. I want mid-level guys fighting mid-level guys. Unfortunately, the mid-level guys have learned all of our bad habits in nullsec, and they know that if they do a good job with diplomacy and they make some friends, that they can get somebody to come and help put their finger on the scale for you guys. And that's just, I don't see how to fix that.
Here's the thing: medium guys can fight large guys. The problem is a brand new category was invented called very large guys.
True.
I don't know if it's a problem. I think that's more of a feature than a bug. Just saying.
I mean, we frequently talk about sort of we don't want to tell people how they can and can't play the game every time it comes to my assertion.
Except you do.
Wait,
Mister. I only want you to have 1,000 people in your group.
Until it comes to my assertion that the large groups are too large in the game. But yes, this is a sandbox where people should be able to play the way they like. But it is a problem when CCP introduces a backhoe to the game that can scoop out half the sandbox in one go, if you've got one.
And
that is all of the tools over the last 5 years that have constantly lifted limits and removed obstacles to becoming ever larger.
Well, there weren't really obstacles to becoming ever larger.
Yes,
at all.
There were.
Like
yes,
what?
There were.
Like what?
The outposts versus citadels, going from one single dockable structure in a SOV system to unlimited locations, adding Keepstars so that people could have far more versatility with characters that they were using for supercaps, adding Rorqual mining so that people could mine order of magnitude larger amounts of minerals in one go, replacing jump bridges with structures that are far easier to use because of things like access lists rather than passwords. Do you want me to keep going?
I don't see any. I see them making changes to the game to remove weaponized inconvenience. I don't see them removing obstacles.
They are obstacles. They absolutely were.
They
obstacles
weren't, because the groups were. There were still huge groups back then anyway.
Yeah, they were nowhere near as large as they are, and as well as being nowhere as large as they are now, the number of players playing the game overall was larger, meaning that as well as the groups getting larger, the number of people playing is lower, which proportionally makes the larger groups even larger than they look.
I don't think that the big groups are, compared to each other, that much bigger than they were 10 years ago.
Compared to each other?
Well, yeah, because that's the obvious comparison.
Okay, so when there's like 4 groups now rather than the 50 that there were back then.
If there were 50 groups back then that had 1,000 people, and there are 4 groups now that have 15,000 people, I mean, and in the end, the content is relatively the same. The same things are going to happen, but the servers couldn't handle the size of fleets that we could have now
There's
back
a
then.
couple
So there was no
things.
way. I mean, that's big. That's another obstacle that I guess you would say was removed. They fixed the servers, so now you can have more people in one place at the same
Right.
time.
I think that
Was that a bad thing?
I think that having more smaller groups, having more chaos is significantly better for the game, because at the end of the day it's a video game, right? So varied interactions and a lot of things going on in a much more spread out area of space with I don't want to necessarily say inherently not inherently, but smaller groups that probably care more about their identity, and are viciously loyal to that identity is probably better for the game, than having 4 large groups.
I disagree. I
So
disagree.
Okay.
I think there is
That's
nothing.
fine.
I think that there is nothing wrong with having big groups. I think that the shared identity in big groups can be just as fun as the shared identity in small ones.
We're talking
fact-
about 2 different sizes of big, though. We're talking about like
I don't
large
care
and
what
very
size
large.
of big you're talking. I don't care if you're talking Horde and Karma Fleet size, or whether you're talking like AAA or Snuff size, or you're talking like Silent Coalition size and HiSec, or you're talking about some small 100-man, 200-man alliance. I don't care. Each group, I think, has their own identity, and it all comes down to the people that are in it and how devoted they are to being in it. Pun intended.
Yeah,
Are you sure that was definitely intended?
No, but it was funny. So it's fine.
It was good.
I think another thing though that you kind of brush aside that really is true to what Phantomite says is like it's really not about causing it's really not about putting an artificial limit on it, but you have to inconvenience very large groups if you actually want them to be small.
No, I don't.
No, he wants
to
a hard limit,
inconvenience them. No, I
Well,
don't want
not
to put. No,
specifically
hold on,
cause
hold on.
inconvenience.
I don't want to put roadblocks in a way, but I don't want CCP to remove challenges that should have been for the players to solve themselves without CCP simply adding the tools to remove those challenges.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to go with a precise example if you want.
No, I think that's
I would like a
think that's
precise
valid.
example.
Like, don't add things into the game that
Okey-dokey.
don't make it easy.
So, as groups grew larger, an increasing problem was the groups were of such a size that the FC would always essentially be alphaed. Now, the solution that CCP presented to this cry for assistance was the Monitor, a ship designed exclusively to do nothing except survive while locking targets so somebody could continue to FC. Whereas this really was a problem that the players should have taken upon to solve themselves. And the solution the players should have chosen was that we are much larger now. We need to have a larger number of FCs. This is a natural limit or a barrier to smash through for groups that can organize that.
All right. I would agree with you on that if every group used monitors and monitors were the best FC ship in every situation.
It's an example,
which they are not.
Brisc. It is an example of CCP removing a barrier.
But that's
players
the thing.
could have solved themselves.
It wasn't a barrier. It was an inconvenience. That's the thing. It was a content.
It's an example of CCP removing an inconvenience.
It was them. Yeah, we want them to do that. We want them.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
No.
Why would you not? Why would
Brisc, everything in Eve
being in a
takes,
fleet where your FC gets headshot so the fleet ends?
Get more FCs.
Yeah, that's how my group operates. God. We have like a 10-man redundancy for like a.
It's a natural limit if you cannot train enough people to be FCs at that stage. It's a natural limit that you can solve yourself if you put the effort in.
Or it's a instant way to end content and deny content for hundreds of players, which is more fun.
You don't train enough FCs, Brisc.
But listen, you're right. The difference between training enough FCs and getting enough people willing to do that, and a ship that makes it a little easier for the FCs that are currently there. I mean,
not having enough people willing to do it. Brilliant. There's a natural limit. There's the limit.
This is supposed to be fun. It's not a limit. It's a.
Wait.
It's weaponized inconvenience. It's denying content.
You don't think that like a group or a fleet with more FCs is potentially more fun than a group with only like 1 or 2 FCs and monitors?
I think that if you have a group with 10 FCs, they'll get more content than a group with 1 or 2. But at the same time, if you only have a group with 1 or 2, I kind of want that group to still be able to get content rather than never being able to get anything because
don't
as
they
soon as
just
they go
train
out,
more
their guy
FCs?
dies, and that's the end of the fleet.
Why
Well,
don't
if they
just
want
train more
content, but they only
FCs?
want to use one FC, then I guess they have to do smaller stuff then.
Oof.
No,
also
because the
true.
same content, that same thing that you would do in a small fleet, you're going to do in the big ones. What is headshotting only something that happens in big fleets? Come on.
Oh,
There is a certain size where it needs to be before it's possible to headshot.
that's also true.
Yeah, like 10.
No, we fight like 25 and 25 to 30, 40
Brisc,
guys, and
Brisc,
we don't have
But
issues with it.
before all the content dried up, we would regularly be flying 50 versus 50 with not even a danger of there being a headshot.
Did you have Logi?
Yes, we had Logi.
Were they not in high alpha ships?
What do you mean?
Listen, if you're talking about the kinds of fights that we see in nullsec, which is hacks online, then headshots are absolutely on the table, and they're pretty common, and you can have as many Logi as you want, and your FCs are still going to die. And you
Yeah.
could bring 10 FCs, that means 10 guys die, and then the fleet's over.
Oh yeah, but it lasts 10 times longer. Bring 20 FCs.
I don't know about that. But the
If it
result
takes-
is
if
it's
it
a
takes
cheap
5
and easy
seconds-
way to win the
If
fight.
it takes 5 seconds to kill one FC, it takes 50 to kill 10, right?
Great.
on
So
paper.
the fight
On
lasted
paper,
a
right?
minute instead of 50 seconds, like 10 seconds.
Well, shoot
That's
their
not
FC
that
first.
good.
Then.
That's not that much more fun.
Shoot their FC then.
Well, that's what everybody does. It turns into trading, and that's it. So boom, then that guy's dead, and then the fleets are over. Both fleets disengage, and they go back and they try to reship and get somebody out. Maybe there's another fight, or they just go home. It's content denial. That's what headshotting ends up being. It's not what you do if you want to have a good fight. And you
also
can't just
limits the
assume that
size
some
of both-
Space Bushido is going to be out there and the guys are not. We're going to agree not to headshot the FC, so the fights go on longer. No, people want to win. They're going to do what's in the best interest. They're going to take the headshot if they can.
Well, if they're going to do what they need, and if half their fleet needs to be capable of basic FCing skills, then if that's what it takes to win, that's what they're going to do.
No, that's not what they're going to do.
What do you?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
Do you think they're gonna do?
No, hold on, Brisk's right. They're not going to do it. Instead, they're just not going to be able to compete at that size.
But Phantomite, one thing that I did want to bring up that I did bring up, I think last week, was that doesn't something like the monitor help smaller gang, like smaller group?
No, not at all.
I think everybody in this channel is aware that smaller groups do not need to use the monitor, and they would rather use a ship that could actually do something.
Yep.
And most big groups are the same way. Not everybody flies 13 monitors in a fleet like Pappy does.
Wait, you say Goons flies 13 monitors in a fleet?
We do
Really?
not. The bad
Oh,
guys
you do. Oh, okay.
We do not. We do not.
Yeah, I see. That's, you know what, dude. More power to you. I'm sorry, Brisk. I
What are
don't
you sorry for? You're the one that looks like a dumbass, not me.
No, dude, I'm just having fun bullying you. I don't care about what chat
How
thinks.
dare
I don't
you.
know if that's apparent.
Now,
or
to be
not.
fair, DTM, it very much sounds like you're desperate to sound like you're the one bullying Brisk when really.
This is true. I am very desperate. He's actually bullying me, dude. Me and my small gang mentality. All 30 of my viewers are gonna stop watching my Twitch channel. Fuck.
How dare they?
Oh, I see the numbers dropping.
Well, DTM, maybe if you had more streamers on your one single stream, you'd be able to keep going after you got headshot off it.
Damn, you're
There
right.
you go.
Dude.
That's it.
I'll just do what Ron does.
You need to
and I'll be
train
like-
more people.
I'll just do what Ron
stream.
does, and I'll be like, if you want to stream snipe me, come to my space and fight me and all my friends. Anyways.
Phantomite, how are you doing, man?
I'm good.
You all right?
Yeah.
I would like to say I very much appreciate you are on the CSM, you ran for re-election and you lost, and you have taken it better than at least one person who I'd never thought really had a shot and has been creating excuses for why he lost for like an entire week. So I'm very proud of you for taking.
Oh, did you
my
see my concession video?
I did. I thought that was very well done. I thought you have behaved like a gentleman and a scholar this entire week. You have handled it much better than I would have. I would have completely walked away for at least a week and not talked to anybody or said anything. So I give you credit for that.
Well, I couldn't very well, especially after some of the things I've said over the last year about how the player mentality around loss is bad in EVE Online. I couldn't very well start throwing a tantrum after I lost this one, could I?
That's just a human thing, though,
Hypocrisy has
man.
never stopped anyone in this game before. Let me just tell you. Okay.
Wait, have you guys ever seen the clip of me? I did this whole. Oh, I'm about to reveal something. I probably shouldn't, but this will
That
be
makes me
funny.
want to see it. Yeah,
So
that's a good trailer.
I don't know if it's around anymore. I'll have to see if I can dig it up. But I did this thing one time where I have a bunch of old like gaming keyboards, and I plugged one up to my computer, so like it was lights on and everything, but it was pretty much broken for the most part. And then one time I died in EVE, and I had this whole plan. I had like a bat next to my table, and I was like, that's it, I'm done. And I acted like I unplugged my keyboard, but it was just the fake one. And I started smashing it with a bat, and everyone was like, man, this guy's real toxic. And I was like, oh no.
Wait, smashing keyboards is toxic?
Salty. That was the
Hold
word.
on,
Sorry.
was it an expensive
man.
keyboard?
It was a broken keyboard. It was an old broken
Oh,
keyboard.
okay.
That's how
All
you
of
do it.
my keyboards are like old and broken.
This is just terrible to hear because it's just more evidence. Nothing I see is ever real.
No, a lot of it's pretty fabricated on Twitch.
And YouTube and in politics in EVE and on TV and
Pretty much. So when are we gonna get the full release of the stats? When are we gonna talk about the stats, Phantomite? That's what I want to know.
CCP has the data. Every current CSM member has the data sans names, and also a number of other random people who have demonstrated more than who have demonstrated at least the basic ability to be able to make functional charts have received the data. I am planning, assuming that I get a few basic charts sometime tomorrow, to make a post on my website that breaks down a lot of the straight answers to the questions. At the same time, I will put the data up for general download so that people can start doing some more detailed following of, well, I can see that like more than half of the people quoted current Citadel mechanics as one of the reasons they left, but I want to have people out there find the deeper things like, oh, was it more wormholers? Was it more low sec? Was it more nullsec that hate Citadels? The nullsec love Citadel. I want other people to be able to find out.
Where did you send
that.
it to me? Because I thought I saw it, but I can't find it now.
In the CSM Discord, but I'll just DM it to you as well.
Phantomite, it being so helpful, man. You know what though? Despite it all,
Okay.
I think you two are one of my favorite CSM members.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that Brisc is wrong about everything he says, and Phantomite
Suck my balls,
Yeah,
DTM. No, sorry, eat my ass. I have to say the right thing. Eat my ass.
How did you guys feel? Campaigning's over. How did you guys feel about this election cycle? Like in general.
You know, I'm not gonna lie. It's a huge amount of effort that is very disappointing to have put in for essentially no result. But it's not no result really. It's just, you know, it's been a week and it's disappointing. But I just wanted to quickly say one more thing about the survey. I am aware. I don't know who, but I am aware that people at CCP are, for obvious reasons, interested in seeing the results, and I'm sure that they would have had some good suggestions to improve the quality of the data had I consulted ahead of time with them. I think it's a pretty good set of questions that I asked. But what I really want
well,
to
you did consult at least one professional.
I did consult at least one professional. I did ask Brisc, who helped me tidy up some of the ways the questions were being asked so that the people were more likely to fill it in, which is very useful. What I really want with this is, I don't just want CCP to see it. I want the community to see what CCP is seeing. Do you see what I mean?
Wait, so you're confirming this survey is just an Imperium conspiracy?
Everything's an Imperium conspiracy. Come on. I want CCP to see it, but I want the community to see what CCP is seeing so that they know that this message has been delivered and been read by CCP. I don't want, there've been there have been, especially over the last year, some significant communication issues between the community and CCP in terms of CCP badly communicating to the player base a number of things, which Brisc is a huge fan of. I think it was one of his most stressful recurring nightmares this year. Would that be right? The poor communication from CCP about changes?
They drive me crazy when they do that shit.
But,
I hate waking up in the morning and having 10,000 PMs from people. What did they do? Did you see this?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I certainly feel that while one of the stated aims of the CSM is to communicate the players' feelings about things to CCP, I feel that every single member on the CSM in CSM 15 did communicate exactly what the players were feeling, and I felt that I'd be lying if I said it made no difference in a positive way. But I feel it made far, far too little difference to what was actually needed by the players. So essentially, the players have written down their feelings. The people who quit have written down their feelings. CCP have it, and they will see it. There's no breakdown of communication here in this direction. They've got it. They can read it. Everybody knows that they've read it. The big question is, what are they going to do about it?
Nothing.
Then that is for the player base, the community, to have firsthand seen CCP directly doing.
Fantastic.
Hey, DTM, have you seen this data?
Have I seen the data? No, I have not.
Because when you see the data, you're going to be a little surprised at what the number one reason people gave for why they quit in the last year was.
It's going to be scarcity.
Yeah.
So not surprised.
I mean, I don't really care though. Fuck them. Like if you can't handle a little bit of economic turmoil in your life, and you're like,
Right.
I'm some hardcore EVE Online player, like, oh, dude.
I feel that for the last 5 years, people's expectations as to what they should fly as normal ships has just shifted all the way to the top of the ships that are available. Whereas I think that expectation needs to slide down a bit. Now, just because these things are now priced out of reach of people doesn't mean that people have shifted their expectations downwards. That is yet to occur. I don't know if it will occur or whether people will just quit. I think that this survey shows that a lot of people are just deciding to just quit rather than shift their expectations of the regular, what constitutes a normal ship to fly regularly.
All right.
I think that's a fair statement. Yeah.
I think if people shifted their expectations down, then scarcity would still be hurting, but it wouldn't be the same kind of pain. It has destroyed what we expect, but we shouldn't be expecting these kind of
well, I want to expect big fights. I want to expect capital fights still. I want to expect people using those types of ships. I mean, people spend years getting into those ships, and now they have nothing to use them for. That's frustrating.
I didn't realize
I love taking battle cruisers out as much as the next guy. I take stabbers out all the time, but at the same time,
I think that's a failure of how CCP has managed expectations, though. In the last 5 years, and it's all in the last 5 years, all of this, I think CCP has repeatedly pushed capitals and super capitals are where you want to go in this game. This is what equals success.
I don't think CCP pushed that. I think that is what players do because they're the biggest ships. They're the coolest ships.
They shoved it into every single trailer. They showed trailers having every single fleet. They put it in all their advertising. They went to town whenever they talked to the press and the gaming press and the big press about it, about the size of these ships and how big they are and how there were so many of them and how epic it was. They pushed it. It lodged in all of our minds, and it is now the truth.
Here's what I want to see. And Moobagger in the chat has it absolutely right. Should have given BS more buffs. Fucking correct. I want to see battleship fleets blot out the sun. I want battleship fleets everywhere. I want to take my Ravens out. I want to see Macarios online again. I want to see Tempests everywhere. I want to see fucking Typhoon doctrines everywhere. That's what I want to see. I missed the day. Like when I started playing EVE in 2006, my aspirational ship was not a fucking Dread. It wasn't a Titan, because the idea that I was ever going to have one of those was so far out of reach for me. Random aspiration. I wanted a Raven, and I was so desperate. When I got into one, it was like the best day ever, and then I realized I didn't have any of the skills to fly the thing. But I got into it. But that's the thing. Like, give us back battleships online. That's what I want.
Here's the thing. It sounds to me, in a really good way, like when you wanted to, when you had your aspiration, it was for the events that you would take part in, rather than the ship you'd be doing it in.
What the ship do? When I first started playing, this was 2006. Like the Bob War was just kicking off. There hadn't been a lot of these big things. Like there wasn't the big heists yet. The Bob Barbecue still hadn't happened yet. There wasn't the Great War. We hadn't had BTAC R or any of that kind of shit. So when I saw it, I was like, this is a PvP game. I like PvP. And I just wanted the cool ship that I thought was reasonable for me to be able to. That was it. Ships can be aspirational things. There's nothing wrong with that. There's definitely the I was there kind of thing now. But
it's also relative. Also relative.
Sure, everybody has their own.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I'm sure that if everybody and their mother had had a super carrier alt when you started, then that would have set your expectation higher.
Well, I will say this. For those of you who are interested in flying in a Macarial, please take advantage of the initiatives. Complete and utter domination of the Macarial market. We are your go-to source for Macarials right now in Curse. Please visit us in GTACO. We are happy to sell you as many Macarial hulls as you want to buy.
Come on down.
This is the best battleship. It has the best skins. The Heart Surge skin on your Macarial. That shows that you are a man of taste and sophistication. Make sure you have one today.
I really hate to. Let's say I really hate.
Yeah, we're kind of at the end, right?
Yeah, we're kind of at the end, but we have an after show afterwards. So everyone who's here should totally watch that. Brisc, you want to do your thing?
Everybody, I want to thank you all for joining us here on Between Two Keepstars. Tonight was my way of showing Rycker how to herf some blurfs. And we didn't even get into a lot of herfing and blurfing. We spent more time explaining why DTM and Phantomite are wrong about everything. But we did have a good time talking about CSM stuff in the beginning. We talked a little bit about the war, but not much because there's not much happening right now. And I haven't had a chance to go listen to Godman's Town Hall, which I have been told I should make sure that I listen to sitting down, because I might fall asleep. And we're going to go ahead, kick into the after show. I'm going to probably get out of here because I'm going to be streaming in about an hour and a half on Rampage Incorporated. Tonight is Sunday. That is hobby stream plus solo PvP night for us. So if you want to watch Merkel Chen out there flying a ship around and watch me putting together a ship model, not a spaceship model, an actual like sailing vessel model, come and check us out, Rampage Incorporated. But thank you all for joining us here on Between Two Keepstars on New Eden Post. I would like to thank Phantomite, my favorite CSM member who did not get reelected, and DTM, my favorite streamer who has an amazing audience of 30 people, for joining us tonight. And of course, Rycker, who I am confident will come out of the gate swinging. He's already announced his CSM 17 campaign. I'm looking forward to seeing him quadruple his vote count next time, if not more than that. Thank you all for joining us.
So we'll kick it to the after show, and we'll be right back.